The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, that was quite a weekend. Welcome to the program. Hit the like and subscribe button as upsets galore, including the University of Tennessee. Caleb goes viral again as he says Tennessee threw that game against Mississippi State or whoever it was. You just got to put losses behind you, Caleb. We know that, right? How are you, sir?
Yes, you do. You do have to put losses behind you, particularly losses you didn't care about to begin with, which was the case of Tennessee.
Maybe that's easier. All right, so we'll take a look at Tennessee's tournament seeding. What do you expect out of the Vols in March? Proof that Tennessee threw the SEC tournament. Proof that other teams did the same thing, according to Caleb Calhoun. Also, a preview of Tennessee's opponent in the tournament. First round, St. Peter's, how deep we think they might go. How will Rick Barnes be remembered if he blows it this year in the tournament? We've got some numbers that will blow you away. Also, spring practice begins Monday. That is today, depending on when you're watching. So we'll have a complete breakdown of what the Vols need to accomplish. That is on offthehooksports.com. A column by me saying the Vols need to just get tougher as a program as a whole, if you want to talk macro, and then a little more detailed breakdown via the one, the only Caleb Calhoun. So we are off and running today. I want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our friends at BetUS, where you can get that 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus the 10% gamblers insurance as well.
America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, so I mentioned Caleb lit it up. There were other podcasts that were citing Caleb Calhoun's column, saying that Calhoun may be onto something. When he wrote it, he looked a little bit crazy on Friday that Tennessee would throw the SEC tournament. But then things fell in line to prove his point throughout the weekend. So whereas I thought it was crazy conspiracy Caleb on Friday, I'm thinking it's convincing Caleb on a Monday. So kudos to you, Caleb. I'm not easy to win over, and I'm not completely won over, but when you take a look at what happened over the weekend, not just Tennessee, did powerhouse teams tank the conference tournaments? Caleb, let me get some numbers from you, because top 25 versus unranked teams were poor to quite poor over the weekend.
Yes, guys, these type of numbers don't happen in any scenario. So let me just break this down real quick. Against unranked teams, from Friday on, top 25 teams were 9-8. They were 4-13 against the spread. That is skewed, by the way, because of the 2 wins that came on Sunday by Illinois and Auburn. By the way, for those who didn't watch that Auburn-Florida game, that was a close game until Florida's best player got hurt, fractured his leg, which, by the way, is more evidence to not play that hard in the conference tournament. And
it was a close game, and Bruce Pearl didn't look excited about winning it either, which I don't want to read too much into something that isn't as clear as some of the numbers you pulled up. But I was just watching him, thinking of you, thinking he doesn't look really happy to win this tournament, and it's on his birthday. So, Caleb, what else you got from the weekend that proves your point before we break down Tennessee's game against Mississippi State and why they might have thrown it as well?
Yeah, so there was a period of time until Sunday where top 25 teams facing unranked teams were 1-12 against the spread. Guys, that doesn't happen. You follow anybody who follows Vegas heavily, anybody who follows gambling heavily like I do, that doesn't happen. You don't go top 25 teams don't go 1-12 against the spread against unranked teams. Any scenario like that, that's not a small sample size. That represents a genuine trend. What was clearly happening was teams, I don't know if they were throwing the tournament on purpose, but if they were already in, they weren't giving all of their effort. In the SEC alone, 3 of 4 SEC teams with double byes lost on Friday, their first game, all to unranked teams. Alabama lost, Kentucky lost, and Tennessee lost. There were 6. Sorry.
Can I argue that 1 point for a second? I think there's something, and I don't want to get caught up on each particular one, because I think you bring up a good point from a macro sense. I think being in rhythm, playing basketball the day before can sometimes be helpful in basketball, not in football, obviously, but I think it can be helpful. And a lot of those teams that you're talking about that were low seeds had to play at a high level to make the tournament. So they're more motivated. Those are all the arguments that I would have given you last week, and I still think holds some merit, but you're being convincing, Caleb, and winning me over. How would you respond to that? As I remind you, portions of the program and today's tough question is brought to you by Boundless Moving. Call Boundless Moving. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you from the 2-hour minimum to turnkey operations. They've got you covered. Their motto, personal service without limits, not just a tagline. It's part of who they are. It's in their DNA. Boundless Moving, against Boundless Moving. Just Google Boundless Moving. So all those traditional responses to what you're saying that I just threw out, you would retort with?
I would retort with, that happens, but it doesn't happen to this level. It doesn't happen to, when you take the 3 out of 4 losing on Friday, 1-12 against the spread on a period of Friday and Saturday with ranked teams versus unranked teams. And then, okay, going into the conference tournament, guys, there were 6 teams vying for number 1 seats to win the tournament. Tennessee, North Carolina, Arizona, Houston, Purdue, and UConn. UConn was the only one to win their conference tournament. 4 of those teams I named, Tennessee, Purdue, North Carolina, and Arizona, lost to unranked teams. The other one, the 5th, Houston, they lost by 30 to Iowa State in the Big 12 title game. Yeah, they lost by 30. And then here's the final bit of evidence. The reason they did this is because they knew what I knew, what Dave knew, what we've talked about for a long time, what Rick Barnes talked about 2 years ago. The selection committee doesn't care about conference tournaments unless you win it and they're forced to put you in. This had no impact. The conference tournament had no impact whatsoever on the seeding. Purdue and Houston and UConn all still got number 1 seeds, as did North Carolina. And the biggest one is Auburn, despite winning the SEC tournament, still got screwed with the 4 seed and has to go to Spokane, Washington for the first weekend. You would think winning the SEC tournament would get Auburn a little bit more love. They were already a top 15 team. Nope. They're still stuck as a 4 seed. They got nothing out of winning the tournament.
2 things to support your argument. It didn't help Auburn, right?
Yep.
It didn't help UConn. They're still a 1 seed, but they got an incredibly tough draw. I didn't think that where did UConn finish in their conference tournament again?
They were the one team that won their conference tournament.
Okay. And did they get helped at all?
No. They technically got the number 1 overall seed. This is not the number 1 overall seed for UConn.
Yeah, they can say that. That's a flat out lie. If they say that is the number 1 seed and the path that they have, take a quick look at the bracket. Their bracket path is incredibly tough. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we would greatly appreciate that. I want to get to whether or not the Vols actually threw it, but first, Caleb has some more great info to share with us about why this isn't a bad move to throw a conference tournament. Now, I gave you the traditional reasons: keep yourself in rhythm, help yourself in the selection process. All of those no longer hold water. You're right. The selection process didn't help or hurt Tennessee, didn't help or hurt Auburn, didn't help or hurt UConn because of what they did in the conference tournament. So you're right. I'm going to throw the one thing out here that I'm not going to budge on, okay?
Okay.
You don't go out there without putting forth 110% effort in a game. It's one thing to dog it in practice, but in a game, you do not go into a game with any intention of throwing it whatsoever. Ever, 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 because it teaches bad habits. Retort.
You always have to try hard when you play.
I like the word retort online. All right, so you say what?
That's the lamest thing you've ever said, Dave. You and I both know there's times where teams don't go 110%, and it's all the time.
Should.
And
But they should.
Why?
They should.
Why?
Okay. Well, not in this particular, just in general, in sports, you should always give your best. You would agree with that.
No, you should keep yourself fresh. It's not their fault that the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee took away the incentive to win these games. I can't blame the teams. I blame the selection committee. I can't blame. Do you blame NFL teams for resting their starters in week 15 and 16 and 17? Or do you blame the NFL for setting up a scenario where 14 teams are in the playoffs and there's less to play for in those final few weeks?
Okay, let me answer that question with this. Can we go ahead and transition to, did Tennessee throw the SEC tournament in the first game? Your thoughts. We're going to put that as a poll question. Was that a good move? We will discuss. I'm fine if Rick Barnes wants to go out there and say Zakai Ziegler, Dalton Connect, and I don't know, Vescovi. I don't know that he needs a rest. But anyway, if you want to rest your best players and throw those guys out there that are backups like Steve Spurrier did and still run your whole offense. What I'm saying, Caleb, is you simply cannot, as a program, Rick Barnes cannot go in front of his team and say, all right, boys, we're going to go out there and we're going to lose this one for the Gipper because we're going to go out there and we're going to lose and you guys are going to get some rest and it really doesn't matter. I can lay this out. This guy named Caleb Calhoun, who I saw on YouTube, gave me all the information I need. My name's Rick Barnes. Caleb's got it figured out. Here it is. It's on the whiteboard. We don't need to beat Mississippi State. Let's go out there and let's get blown out and embarrassed in the first round, their first round of the SEC tournament, and let's move on to March. You can't have that approach. Would you agree with that?
I mean,
you could run the wrong offense. You could run a defense that you don't really think is going to work. You could rest your starters, but you can't have a team meeting that says, we're going to go out there and blow it. You can't do that. I mean, I go to the message board and someone said bad habits breed bad habits. I believe there's some truth to that. So if Rick Barnes threw it, I hope he did it my way. Now, he didn't rest the starters, but maybe he ran an offense and defense he didn't feel too great about.
I'm going to engage that in a second because I don't think Rick Barnes did just say go lose this game. So you guys can rest easy knowing that. But why not? Why can't you do that? Honestly, why can't you? Why can't you? If the selection committee is going to sit there and say we're not going to take this into account at all, why can't you? And by the way, here's another big one. I want to point this out. I'm going to get into this later this week, guys, because I'm not done with the selection committee and the stupidity of the NCAA doing this. But Dave, you know how much? Okay, you know what the payout is for an NCAA tournament?
Just to make it? I do not. And how do they split the revenue? I don't really know.
Here's what happens. For every game that involves a team for every single NCAA tournament game that involves a team from your conference gets $2 million.
Okay, that's a good chunk of cash.
So it's considered units. There's 67 NCAA tournament games. I think like 130 possible units that a conference could get. You don't think there is now an incentive for teams automatically in the tournament from a conference to help a lesser team from their conference win the conference to get an automatic bid so everybody in the conference gets a better payout?
I understand the motivation, and this will surprise you. 20 years ago, this will really surprise you, and this will age me as I turn 50. I'm 50 last week. I said the exact same thing you said 20 years ago. I said even more. I said I would I would be more willing to be a 4 seed and rested than a 2 seed if I got hurt by the conference tournament. Because I do believe before they went to this pod system about 10 years ago that the conference tournament matters. You and I would agree on that, right? That you could affect your seeding. Now it's logistically impossible, Caleb. So I have to put a 68 team field together. And with the pod system, for those that don't remember, they try to keep some teams close to home.
They can't do that within an hour.
No, you can't. You can barely do that in a day. You've got to go to bed Saturday night with basically a couple of blanks open, depending on who wins their smaller conference tournament, right?
That's all. That's the only way to do this. Yeah. It's so stupid that they have conference tournament title games on a Sunday right before the selection committee. So yeah, this is, I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah. You can't change it all. It's like when Caleb and I, when Tennessee's playing a down opponent, I'll give you a little insight so we can get it out sooner. A lot of times, if they're just beating the brakes off somebody, our columns are 90% written by the beginning of the second half.
We have to.
I know, but when they flip, if the game flips and changes, and I'm trying to think of an example last year, I had a pretty good feel for the Alabama column last year before Tennessee decided not to show up in the second half. But you can't do that with 68 teams and a hard deadline. I mean, your deadline, you've got to have that in by what? What time did the selection show come on? 6 o'clock? So you got to have that done by 6. So you're supposed to.
And the Big Ten tournament's at 2. The Big Ten tournament title game starts at 2. So it ends at 4:30, something like that.
Y'all can call him Caleb, Crazy Caleb. You can call him Conspiracy Caleb. You can do all that you want. But I had the same thought 20 years ago, and he just provided more proof because I think it may actually be happening in a weekend that I had in those 20 years. And you brought up another great point about something that Rick Barnes said a couple of years ago. Now, wait till you hear this, because this is pretty phenomenal. Caleb did some big time digging over the weekend. This quote by Rick Barnes is so foreshadowing. It's absolutely crazy. The show represented by Banks and Jones. Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. What did Rick Barnes say a couple of years ago after he won the SEC tournament? This is so insightful and might be foreshadowing. It's ridiculous.
So this happened 2 years ago. And so for those who don't know, 2 years ago, Tennessee entered the SEC tournament as a projected 3 seed. Okay. They won the SEC tournament. They won all 3 games in 3 days, the first SEC tournament title in over 22 years. They still got into the NCAA tournament as a number 3 seed. Included in that tournament, by the way, was Tennessee beating Kentucky, a top 5 team. Now, the team they beat to get there, Texas A&M, won 3 games in 3 days and beat 2 top 10 teams in the process. They were a bubble team entering the SEC tournament. Then they beat 2 top 10 teams to go face Tennessee in the SEC tournament title and lose. And they still didn't make it into the NCAA tournament, which made it very clear the NCAA tournament took the conference tournaments, took zero indication from them. Rick Barnes, at the time, railed against them. And he basically said, quote, if conference tournaments don't mean anything, if the teams are already slotted to be in the tournament, can't improve their seeding, we should stay home and let the teams that are trying to get in the tournament fight for that automatic bid. Give our league a chance to get more teams in the NCAA tournament.
Okay. Robert says Caleb needs a chill pill. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He can do a line of cocaine right now if he wants to, because I think he's on to something. He does that. But if he needs more energy, we can do that, because Caleb, this is still a conspiracy, But of all the conspiracies that you and I have both thrown out, this is by far the most believable. On the conspiracy scale, if 10 is I believe it, and 1 is Bigfoots fly UFOs, okay, I'm at about an 8. And I think it's like I did it. I think it's how much preparation goes into this team, how much the week before do you spend on getting better? Do any of the players say, it seems like we're working on our fundamentals and our offense against any opponent as opposed to really, really buckling down on Mississippi State? If that's the case, then you get that feel when you go into the game, and then they get out of it. They get out of the SEC tournament, and guys, trust us. We love content. I would have given anything to be watching basketball on Saturday and writing about things that we're going to run Saturday night and Sunday. So this is not something we want to happen. This is not something that I think is the best overall. But given where the sport is and how it's set up, all I can do is call Rick Barnes smart and innovative if he did something like this. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you those adjectives aren't used a lot with a guy that people call regular season Rick. City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. Go to cityheatandair.com, cityheatandair.com. Caleb, this isn't even that much of a conspiracy. This may just be a line of thought. This may just be an opinion. I'm not even sure it's a hot take after what happened this weekend. Friday, I wondered if you were nuts.
So you guys ready for the evidence that Tennessee didn't even go all out to beat Mississippi State? You ready for the hard evidence that just flat out proves it?
Okay, and I've got one that I think proves the other side, but you go.
Okay. So, first was a disproportionate amount of threes. 33 of Tennessee's 62 shots were threes. That's tied for the third most threes they've taken all year. Every other time they've taken more than 30 threes, they attempted at least 65 shots. They usually attempt in the 70s. They only took 62 shots. Second, there's 4 takeaways here. The second one, and Jimmy Hyams brought this up over the weekend, and he had a good point. He has a column on our website right now about it, about the concern of Tennessee in the paint. Tennessee was outscored 42-14 in the paint. Guys, Jonas Adu was second team All SEC and on the All SEC defensive team. How does he just overnight get wrecked in the paint like that? That doesn't happen. Third, and this is a big one too, is that Tennessee had a 2.9 block percentage. On the year, they have a 6.1 block percentage. That's the lowest. I'm sorry, not on the year. The lowest block percentage they had in any game all year was 6.1. They had nearly just a third of that on Friday. The lowest by far they'd had all year. That indicates they contested fewer shots than they've contested in any game this year. They didn't even contest shots. That's what that really measures. And then lastly, if you guys watched the game, it was kind of Tennessee was still somewhat theoretically in it for a period of time in the second half. And they pressed for a minute and actually gave Mississippi State some trouble. The only time they pressed was when Dalton Knecht was on the bench. They wouldn't even call the press defense when Knecht was out there because they didn't want to waste his energy. So, Dave, before you jump in, here's what I want to say happened. Because I'm not going to say Barnes lost the game on purpose. Here's what I think happened. Barnes said, don't fight that hard for loose balls. Don't fight that hard on trying to contest shots. Don't try to outmuscle in the paint. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Try to win the game just shooting from outside. If the shots fall, great. If they don't, we'll go home.
Okay, I don't believe you can be that transparent with young men. I think you can say we're going to live with the 3. We're going to knock them down, go out there and jack them up. But I don't think you can say don't go for loose balls and don't get effort. That, to me, would maybe be the one line that we would cross where I would differ with you. But Me Drinker says if Tennessee gets past the Sweet 16, I'll give you all credit. Give Caleb credit. He broke the internet again. But if they don't, y'all are going to eat crow. No, Mississippi State, he also points out, went 2-0 against them. I don't think they have to go past the Sweet 16 to prove you right, Caleb. But If they made a Final Four run and you look back on this podcast, you sure would look like an Einstein. There's no question.
I'm looking like an Einstein even if they lose the first round.
How about a
Okay,
little
this is what
humility?
happened.
Humility, Caleb.
And by the way, for those who say Mississippi State went 2-0 against Tennessee. Sorry, I love you, Meat Drinker. I just wanted to I got a lot of that this weekend, and I fought a lot of people. You're one of our best, Meat Drinker. You make a lot of great points. But I have to tell you guys,
It's because he's on the mead.
I am
Remember when you're
I'm not on the mead. Okay,
No,
maybe
no,
maybe some lingering effects from St. Patty's Day.
Mead drinkers.
Maybe some lingering effects. Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so
He's on the mead. Remember, people used
Tennessee-
to say he's on the pot or he's on the weed. Sounds so weird to be on. Anyway, he's on the meat. Go ahead.
Tennessee, their first loss to Mississippi State was a 77-72 game in which Dalton Connect had just come back from injury, and it was at Mississippi State, and they were learning the rest of the team was learning how to play with Dalton Connect because, as you know, Dave, as you've written, they changed the offense this year because of Dalton Connect. They changed their whole offensive scheme because of Dalton Connect. And they lost 77-72.
Can I offer
They
some
lost
reasons?
73 to hold on. Let me just bring this up and then I'll let you offer it. They lost 73-56 in a game that wasn't even that close to Mississippi State this time when they're more adjusted to Dalton Connect. And it was an effective home game because they were playing in Nashville.
Okay, I'm going to play the other side of this because I still do not agree with Caleb, but I don't want to be disingenuous and say he hasn't made me think a lot. Hunter says, let's say it is true. Was it a good decision with all the upsets in the conference tournaments? If Tennessee had won the tournament, they would have been that fourth 1 seed playing in the West. Now, our argument is that the selection committee, and I've thought this for at least 10 years, that they don't really care because they have to have that bracket done. The bracket shouldn't come out till Monday night from now on. I mean, that's what they should do, but they're not going to do this because it is a little bit of a tradition. On the YouTube,
How's it not an AI bracket yet? How is AI not there shouldn't even be a selection committee. It should be AI.
You know me, I'm formula guy. I'm fine with a formula for football, basketball, lay them out. I don't care about conference championships, all that. But let me throw out some reasons why you're wrong, just for the fun of it. Okay. Number one, they did play the starters. So if you're going to throw a game, you don't run Dalton Connect out there and risk an injury to one of your best players or Zakai Ziegler or any of those guys. So your response to that, they did play their best players. They started their best players. I've got an answer to that if you don't.
Well, I mean, I can do you one better because they also not only did they play him, they played Dalton Connect 35 minutes and Zakai Ziegler 38 minutes, which is insane to me. And I've criticized Barnes for that all year.
Can I support your point for a second?
Sure.
The SEC would rain hell on you if you didn't play your starters.
That's where I was going. Barnes had to make it look like he cared. It's not about them playing. There's a difference between playing and playing at a level that exerts a lot of energy. Is that fair to say, Dave, in basketball?
Yes, that's very fair to say.
Yes. Tennessee, Rick Barnes' strategy going into the game was live by the three, die by the three. For those who know basketball, that doesn't drain your energy the way trying to win in the paint does. Just doesn't.
Okay. Let me throw some other ones at you real quick. Now, Hunter says, I do agree with Caleb that the effort in the paint shows they didn't care much. However, Vescovi and Josiah not playing well isn't lack of effort. They have just stunk this year. A lot of truth to that. Okay, I'm going to give you counter Caleb point number 2. Counter Caleb point number 2 is that maybe the players just didn't think a lot of the SEC tournament. Ron Slay's come on here and said that they didn't think a lot of the SEC tournament. They were looking ahead to the NCAA tournament. So that would take away your argument of an orchestrated throwing of the game. Do you give that any merit whatsoever?
No, because the way they the disproportionate 3-point shooting is what gives it away, particularly when, and here's a big point, Mississippi State played half that game in a 1-3-1 zone. Now, a 1-3-1, as you guys know, is not a 2-3. The lanes underneath the basket are wide open. There's a lot of easy shots underneath the circle when you play a 1-3-1. Tennessee barely tried any shots underneath the circle in a 1-3-1, despite having an all-SEC center.
Okay. Got no argument with that. All right. Here's another one. You're not going to
He's
go.
trying. He's trying so hard to say
Well, I
Tennessee
am.
tried.
No, you're not going to go out there and get yourself embarrassed. I mean, it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to lose by 20 points.
Well, that's where this comes in of live by the 3, die by the 3. Tennessee is not a live by the 3, die by the 3 team. So the point is, if the shots are falling, Tennessee is going to the next round no matter what. If they're not, they're not. They weren't just not falling on Friday. They were just ice cold shooting the ball on Friday. But
So would Rick Barnes have been upset had they won if those threes dropped?
No, he wouldn't have been upset if they won. And so, yeah, he would have been fine if they made it to Saturday. Rick Barnes' strategy was, I'm not going to overwork our team in the paint. And he's been very clear on this. Look, Rick Barnes kind of showed up the NCAA without showing up the NCAA with what he did. And he wasn't the only one. Now, not everybody was this way. Look, I'm going to be honest. Purdue, Wisconsin, I actually think Purdue was trying to win that game. I do. I watched that game. I don't think there was any new strategy. I think that's just one of those random upsets that happened. But I watched Houston against Iowa State. You don't lose like that if you're Houston to Iowa State. And you don't lose like that if you're UNC.
May I offer you another one? And by the way, sign up. It's pinned up on the page. Go ahead and sign up and take part of our NCAA bracket challenge. And we're going to have all kinds of prizes to give away whoever wins it. So you can become a member of the Hooker's Corner on Patreon without spending $1. So you are eligible even if you're not a paid member. So go ahead and get in there, fill out your bracket, and let's see you win great stuff, including gift certificates, a book, and a shirt. All right, Caleb, I got one last one for you. This one's very innate, I guess is the word. There was a point where Dalton Knecht missed a 3 in the second half that would have made it a ball game. It was a long 3. It was a little short, maybe dead legs, which proves your point. But he went and grabbed the ball in the corner, and he was kind of in the concourse, and he slammed the ball down, and he was mad that they were getting beat like that. That you would agree that's not a faux response. He was upset. I don't think he would have done that had he been okay with losing.
You're bolstering my point that Rick Barnes was the one behind it, not Dalton Knecht or the players.
Okay,
This
so
was a
going
strategy.
Going back, you don't think he said, don't play hard in the paint. You think he probably just dialed up the plays, not to play
I
hard.
think Rick Barnes dialed up a strategy that said, we're going to look for the 3 first.
Okay. I mean, am I wrong? He brings up a great point. Somebody says, damn straight, Caleb. Yep, Caleb. Yeah, so if you win, no big deal. You probably haven't put up too much energy to be able to win. I don't have anything else for you. I don't have anything else that can tell you that they didn't throw that game, that it wasn't smart to throw that game. I mean, yeah, you broke the internet, Caleb.
They're better
Great
than
job as
me.
always.
Because and we're going to talk later in the week too. We're not going to do it today, but I mean, I'm teasing it already because as college football starts to expand with the playoff, we're seeing a preview of what conference championships in football are going to be in the future. Because this is what expanded playoffs do. You can have your little fun March, you can have your little fun December, but you're tossing everything great about a regular season and I guess postseason before the postseason event and conference tournaments, conference championships. What you saw in the SEC tournament over the weekend, you're going to see in the SEC championship game in football very soon.
Okay. I disagree with that, but I agree that Ray Varner, Ford, and Clinton is a great place to get a truck.
F-150 4x4 Super Cab, $44,992. A 2023 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,952. 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Crew XLT, $54,900. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
All right, so let's take a look at our poll question that is ongoing. I'm not even sure I've teased it yet. Pinned up at the top, by the way, you can participate in our NCAA tournament bracket challenge. It's Hooker Madness. Do you believe Tennessee through the SEC tournament? This is stunning. Have you looked yet, Caleb?
I actually have not.
Okay, what do you think? I got 2 choices. Yes, doesn't matter. No, got to play to win.
75% say yes, doesn't matter. That's my call.
73% say that it doesn't matter. Caleb's on fire. Break down Tennessee's seeding in St. Peter's. And a lot of people think that Creighton is the team that is going to beat Tennessee. Their draw and more coming up next. Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
I want to address a couple of things. Somebody asked me on the message board, said it's time that you apologize to the Lady Vols because they made their tournament. I don't remember saying that, but I didn't ever think they would.
Never said that.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but I may have said it in passing. But they're always going to remember this, though. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Why, Caleb? Because they're the Lady Vols. Derek says, Rick Barnes excuses y'all. I told y'all he's not the answer. I can't stand this logic. Shaking my head. He's a mid-grade coach, always has been. Watch how we get exposed in the tourney. Derek, I think you and I actually agree on like 90% of your comment, except for one. We're not coming up with excuses. You look across the nation, and this looks to be a trend. Caleb just pointed that out. So if you didn't hear that, if you got in late, please go back and watch that at some point during the day. We want you live now. But as far as the rest that you say, I told y'all he's not the answer. If I had to bet a mortgage payment, I'd say you're right. I can't stand this logic. I can. He's a mid-grade coach, always has been. Mid-grade elite. I mean, he's not a guy who's struggling to get a job, but mostly we agree. Watch how we get exposed in the tournament. Based off history, I can't argue with that. So, Derek, I don't think we're far off, to be real honest with you, in what we think. I mean, this doesn't mean that Rick Barnes suddenly took a genius pill last week through the tournament, was embarrassed by Mississippi State, and is going to win a national title. Caleb, nobody's saying that.
No, I don't think Rick Barnes, the issues that persist with Rick Barnes still persist. We're going to talk about him a little bit later on the show on why this team should be different. But yeah, I don't think we think that we're not saying that this is anything different about Rick Barnes. We're just saying the conference tournament is not an indicator. And guys, you're forgetting this. Rick Barnes just won the SEC tournament 2 years ago. So it's not like his whole coaching makes him incapable of winning tournaments like these. He just won the SEC tournament 2 years ago, but then he suffered a quick second round exit in the NCAA tournament, losing to Michigan. So again, this is not that there's still a lot of pressure on him in March to do what he needs to do. We're just saying that this is not reflective of that, what happened over the weekend.
No, agree. Completely agree. I think they're two completely different things. I'll tell you what's a thing, and there are a lot of people that like to copy that thing out there. Is TriStar hats. You can see it right online. For the latest in TriStar hats, go to the original hats, apparel, and more. TriStarHatsCo.com. That's the official that you see right here above my left shoulder that you certainly should check out. You see the website right there. I'm going to put it in the message board as well, so you can order your TriStar Hats Co. merchandise. As far as our poll question, we would love for you to take part. Do you believe Tennessee through the SEC tournament? Yes, doesn't matter. 74%. This is on YouTube. No, gotta play to win. Gets 26%. So let's change gears for a moment. As with Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Tomorrow we'll have John Adams. Wednesday we will have Jimmy Hyams. So that is always a lot of fun. Jimmy will bring some noise. Great column by him on offthehooksports.com right now. Tennessee's seeding is blank, Caleb Calhoun.
Tennessee's seeding is fair. It's right where it should be.
Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to say it's crazy. It's way too good. They looked out for the Vols. But no, I think it's about what it should be. So this is how it would project. Tennessee and St. Peter's in the first round. And then I'm going to break down St. Peter's for you guys here in just a second. I did a lot of research last night, so you will know them. And it's a team Tennessee should beat, clearly. But they do have an inside presence, which is a little bit scary because that's cropped up as a problem the past couple of weeks against Kentucky in the SEC tournament, if you believe they didn't throw it. All right, after St. Peter's, it would be the winner of Texas and whoever plays in one of those opening round, first round games. Tennessee, Texas, I'm sure this was an accident in the second round. They didn't do that because Rick Barnes coached at Texas. Caleb, you hinted at that yesterday, but that's crazy. They wouldn't do that. It's about 1 through 68, and you seed them where they should fall. It has nothing to do with storylines, Caleb. Sarcasm.
You're right. The NCAA tournament is never a TV show. And it's, particularly since 2016, 2015, when they started televising every single game, you can actually watch all the games across the 4 networks now. So you can't miss any. They don't think at all about
we're being sarcastic
like that. And yeah, it doesn't happen, guys. And this would be a Saturday night matchup if Tennessee played Texas, where you'll have a lot more eyeballs because a lot of people, nobody will be working. Everybody's going to be chilling, watching the games on Saturday night. They'll be at bars and parties. There's no storyline here. By the way, also, this game would be in North Carolina, which is where Rick Barnes is from. So Rick Barnes from North Carolina, coaching Tennessee, potentially against his former school in Texas. Yeah, the NCAA tournament didn't do that on purpose.
Absolutely on purpose. Absolutely on purpose. Hit like and subscribe now. I think we have a record number of concurrent viewers, so we're excited about that. If you're new to the channel, please hit like and subscribe. If you're kind of new and haven't set up your notifications, do that too. If you're on one of our audio platforms, please give us a review, but make sure those notifications are on. All right, you want to take a look at St. Peter's here because there's a preview.
Well, let's talk about the seeding for a minute, a little more.
Okay, let's go deeper into the seeding. Sounds good. So who would they potentially face in the Sweet 16?
To start, I want to actually stick with the Texas thing for a minute because Texas, they went out of their way to kind of even give them an easier path to play. So Tennessee is an assumed easy path because they're a 2 seed, right? Yes, 2 seeds lose. You guys don't need to come at me about that, but particularly, Dave, you would agree that if you're a 2 seed, you're expected to immediately advance, right?
I think they've only lost 5 times in the history, maybe 8 at the most. So yes, and I think a 1 is only lost once. So
twice.
Yeah, you should win. twice. Is it twice now? You should win those games 99.9% at the time. Robert says,
So
stop looking at my St. Peter's. So stop looking at my St. Peter's.
So
well, you know what they need? They need our favorite name, the kid who played at Washington. I can't remember his name all of a sudden.
Michael Penix Jr.
Yes,
playing at St. Peter's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Michael Penix with an incredible 3 for St. Peter's. Nothing hard about that shot. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You think they played Longwood this year? Okay, sorry. Okay, so what I'm saying is, so that Tennessee, they're expecting to just immediately advance. Texas gets to play Texas is one of the 2-7 seeds that will play a play-in winner between Virginia and Colorado State. So they'll already be tired before they play Texas, which gives Texas a more clear path to face Tennessee, right?
Yeah, they need to move that. They need to move that first round just to the site of the tournament. And I know they want to have it in Dayton because Dayton's a basketball mecca and all that stuff. I've never understood that. But they need to have that. It's easier to play back-to-back nights than it is take a day off in between.
Yeah, you're probably right, because at least you're kind of rolling with adrenaline at that point. So if Tennessee were to advance, guys, Tennessee should be very thrilled about their draw, because the other 2 high seeds that would be in their way to the Elite Eight, the 3 seed in the region is Creighton. Can you ask for a better 3 seed, Dave?
No, Creighton is funny to me because Creighton's always the team. This could be the year that Creighton's the Gonzaga. This could be the year that they make the run. That never happens. It's never happened.
Never.
It's never going to happen. Creighton is going to be a respectable program. But to take a jump like Gonzaga did and go from not even to being a mid-major to being considered a major in basketball, Caleb, that doesn't just happen. You got to do that.
Yes, Creighton did. And I want to be fair. They made the Elite Eight last year, but that's the first time they ever made it under Greg McDermott. So Greg McDermott's been there for 14 years. They don't have that run in them 2 years in a row. I'm sorry. Mid-majors usually don't have that run 2 years in a row. They have it 1 year. So Tennessee should love potentially playing Creighton. If they don't play Creighton, their other potential opponent would be South Carolina. Now, I think we know Tennessee can beat South Carolina. They just did 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't play South Carolina, they would play an 11-seed Oregon or a 14-seed Akron. So they're either playing a 3-seeded Creighton, a team they just beat 2 weeks ago, or an 11 or a 14 seed. If they can get past the first, Texas might be their toughest foe to get to the Elite Eight, guys. And they're in a bracket with Purdue again. And they played Purdue earlier in the year, which is kind of intriguing. But Purdue, like Tennessee, Rick Barnes allegedly does this. Purdue also practices their team at full strength into March, which is why they flame out a lot in March.
Okay. What do you think of the Purdue matchup if that happens?
I think Tennessee is much better now than they were when they faced Purdue back in November. I think in November, Tennessee did not learn. You pointed this out, Dave, a while ago, which was last year the offense was dependent on shooters coming off high pick and roll screens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And catching and shooting. This year, it's built around it's a high-low motion offense with Jonas Aidoo and Dalton Connect and Zakai Ziegler setting it up. And Dalton Connect being the
Scobie is a terrible fit for, but that's a topic for tomorrow. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. When they played Purdue, they still weren't used to the high-low motion offense. Rick Barnes never really ran much of the motion offense until this year. Most of his offensive scheme for years has been the flex, which for those who don't remember, that's what Bruce Pearl ran. That's part of the Tom Davis, Gary Williams coaching tree that they ran back in the 80s. So Rick Barnes was a flex with some motion, and he fully adapted to the high-low motion offense this year. And Tennessee took a little while to figure that out, and that's why they struggled at times early. This ain't the same team that played Purdue in November. Purdue, I think the stereotype still stands that they don't do well in the tournament. I'm a big believer, Dave, and I think you are too. Defensive first teams are not tournament teams, right?
Oh, okay. Defensive first teams. I like good defensive guard play, which is one of the reasons I like Tennessee with Zakai Ziegler. Everybody talks about guard play and nobody mentions defense. By the way, get back to your defensive-oriented team in the NCAA tournament. But I want to remind people that you can vote on our brand new poll question that's on board. Do you believe Tennessee makes the Sweet 16 or better or flames out in the first weekend. Brought to you by Don Self, a State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, Don Self has built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. 423-396-2126. That's 423-396-2126 or donself.net. donself.net. Now, I can't remember the last defensive-oriented team that won it. Well, I mean, I'm going to go way back. I'm going to go way back before your time, and you're immediately going to say to me, wait, that sounds stupid. But there's something to this. The UNLV team, now they were loaded offensively. Larry Johnson, Augman, all those guys. That's going way back. They ran an amoeba defense, which was essentially a 4-man zone, and then oftentimes Augman or another guard would just go play the ball. I thought they were so innovative and athletic defensively that if they couldn't hit the broad side of a barn, they were going to have a whole lot of success. I got to be honest with you. That's the last defensive team that I can even manufacture that has had success in the NCAA tournament. Is anybody else
there's defensive first teams that have won it since then, but the difference is they were elite offensively. Like, let's be fair. Virginia, the Tony Bennett Virginia team in 2019 that won it, they were defense first, but you watched that team, Dave. They were very efficient offensively.
Yes.
If they needed a bucket, they could score.
Well, and all those Princeton teams, you could say that they were defensive oriented, but really with the back cuts and all that they did, they could manufacture points despite being athletic. So all those teams that did that placed an emphasis on defense, but they never won anything either.
Right. What about Nolan Richardson's Arkansas team, the 40 Minutes of Hell? Was that offensive based at all? Or that seemed like that was just the whole team was just press defense, wasn't it, for 40 minutes? But and they won a title doing it.
You're talking about UNLV?
No, Arkansas with Nolan Richardson.
Oh, okay, yeah. But again, they're kind of like UNLV. They were so athletic and good offensively that it feels weird calling them a defensive-oriented team. But you're right. It was 90 minutes of hell. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so so long story short, when there are defensive teams, they're still major threats offensively. Kind of like in football. You know, in football, until recently, we always said defense wins championships, right?
Ooh,
but
Lamont with a good one. I'm sorry to interrupt. Georgetown.
That was the 80s, 85.
Well,
and they also had Patrick Ewing.
I know we're going way back, but I mean, that proves your point. I'm having to go to the early 90s with UNLV, and it's a reach. I'm having to go back to Arkansas, which was the late 90s, and that's a reach.
It's like, okay, think about it this way. It's like with college football where, you know, they always find like that team that was offensive oriented that went to championship, and they'll say, see, defense doesn't win championships. It's like, yeah, but those offensive teams were still loaded defensively in college football typically, right?
I think here's the best one on there, actually, other than Georgetown, which I would pick Georgetown, but that's been 50 years ago. Jan said North Carolina before the shot clock. So I think of Dean Smith, and I may be going before your time again, Caleb, but I'm sorry to be the old man on the YouTube. But those teams, you know, who was the only player or who was the only person that could hold Jordan to under 20? It was Dean Smith. Those teams were defensive first, but Dean Smith only won one title or two? And
he won two, and one of them was in the shot clock era.
And that's like Calipari level of success, where you've got to look back and say, did he underachieve? You're at North Carolina for 30 years, and you only win two?
And also, they may have been defensive oriented, but that first title he won had Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, and James Worthy.
I know. It's like UNLV in Arkansas. It's really hard to make that argument. But,
it's like when people say that.
Standpoint, I think Jan's right, don't you?
Yes, philosophically, you have a point, but then there's still like these teams aren't like, it's not like they're not threats offensively. Again, that's why I went back to football. People talk about the 96 Florida team in football saying, oh, Steve Spurrier was all offense. Yeah, that team also had Javon Curson. How many elite defensive like freaks that were scary to face in football at the same time, even if they were offensive focused. I mean, this is the thing. You can focus on one side of the ball, but if you're great on I'm not saying you can't be a defensive focused team and win. I'm saying you can't be all defense and win. That's why Jamie Dixon and Matt Painter have never won national titles or gone that far.
Nope.
Or Gene Katie back in the day.
I agree. And that all the teams that we mentioned to try to play devil's advocate do not fit that mold, except for maybe Georgetown. I'll give you Georgetown. Great on the message board, but even mine and UNLV and yours in Arkansas, I mean, that's not defense only. I mean, I don't think of that as like Iowa in football in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah. And by the way, some people will come and say that, John Calipari is defense only. No, he's not. John Calipari just can't coach at all. So he just relies on his players' athleticism to be good at defense.
There's a lot of truth to that. And when they want to play D, they're good. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechat with 2Ts.com, hemphousechat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. That's the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. On our poll question that is on the YouTube page, and yes, Rick Terry is a superstar. I don't know why he said that, but he did. I'm honestly expecting Tennessee to blank. Choices are flame out in the first week of the NCAAs, Sweet 16 or better. Caleb, again, don't peek. Have you peeked?
I've not peeked.
What do you think our fan base says? What percentage?
I think it's another 75-25. 75 Sweet 16 or better. 25
Caleb,
flame out.
Nobody likes anybody that's right all the time. Yes,
Guys,
you're
it's
right.
really hard for me to be wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
We're about to discuss St. Peter's. If you guys know about Peter the disciple in the Bible, he denied Jesus 3 times. You don't deny me 3 times.
Did you just... Caleb just compared himself to Jesus, everyone.
Do not deny Caleb 3 times.
Not only can you get football, baseball, basketball info here, you can also achieve eternal salvation. Right here, hit like and subscribe.
That's through Hugh Freeze, guys.
Yes. Turn your notifications on, and you will be in heaven. It's just that simple. Do leave us a review. We joke. All right. Tennessee opens spring practice. We're going to get to that here in a little bit as well. But let's take a look at St. Peter's. So St. Peter's, there is a tie between the two teams. Have you heard about this one yet?
Isn't it Zakai Ziegler's half brother?
Yep. Zakai Ziegler's half brother plays for the University of St. Peter's or St. Peter's University, whichever one it might be. As far as St. Peter's, we've got a first look at the Vols' first round opponent. That is on offthehooksports.com. First of all, the resume. The Peacocks made the NCAA tournament after beating Fairfield 68-63 on Saturday to secure the MAC tournament conference tournament win. And by the way, I say MAC because it's got 2 A's. It's not the MAC. The skinny on them. The Peacocks average about 65 points per game. That's not good. That's 343rd in the NCAA. They gave up 63.5 per contest. That's 12th best in college basketball. They outscored their opponents by 1.8 points per game, so they play in a lot of close games. The Peacocks typically rebound their opponent, averaging 35.6 rebounds per game. That's 155th in the nation, 2.5 more than the 33.1 that its opponents rebound average. St. Peter's hit 5.9 three-pointers per game, 316th best in the NCAA. Its opponents averaged 5.7 made threes. The Peacocks forced turnovers, winning that battle as well. So this is exactly the type of team that Tennessee, I don't believe, wants to face. A physical team that pounds it down low, that's going to battle with you. We'll get into some of the names here in a second, and they're not as good or athletic as Tennessee, but their approach is probably something Rick Barnes would have been fine without.
I disagree. This is exactly the type of team you want to face in the tournament.
It's
the exact type of team not built for a tournament run. And the reason they're not, it's one thing when you face a Mississippi State or South Carolina, a Power 5 team that wants to get into a slogfest with you by playing down low and going on defense. But Dave, what do they have that St. Peter's doesn't have? They have actual size that makes things tough for Tennessee. Now, I'm ready for the jokes. Don't come at me for the jokes, guys. But St. Peter's doesn't have a lot of size, okay? And they win by out-muscling teams down low at their respective level. Well, you know this, Dave. At these smaller levels of college basketball, it's like high school ball, which is to say 6'6" and 6'7" guys play center, and then they out-muscle you down low. They're not going to out-muscle a 6'11" Jonas Adu down low. That's not going to happen. And so, and I mean, Josiah Jordan-James will win the muscle battles with them. So if you are the type of low seed from a small level to be dangerous for Tennessee, you need to be the one that shoots very well from outside, doesn't turn the ball over, and plays decent and is effective on defense. But this St. Peter's team relies on playing inside. They rely heavily on interior defense. And that's kind of right in Tennessee's favor because Tennessee can just go down low the whole game. They'll feed Jonas Adu. They'll have Dalton Connect drive in the paint. Zakai Ziegler will have his looks, but this is going to be the Connect Adu show. If both of them don't score 25 points, I'm going to be shocked.
There's so many jokes about St. Peter's name that I'm having trouble even looking at the message board. You guys are both incredible and awful at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and judge you as incredible and awful at the very same time. Some players you need to know. We'll get to that. Quality Tire Pro has been serving the Chattanooga community since 1957. Downtown, all major brands of tires, full service automotive brake alignments. Go in there and say, "Hey, Bo." Off the Hook Sports said, "Hey, Bo." They're on Cherokee Boulevard or online at qualitytirepros.com. So if you're in the Chattanooga area, I can tell you firsthand that's where you need to take your car if you're having any sort of issue with it. All right. So when we take a look, it's not just Zakai's brother that is on St. Peter's basketball team. St. Peter's is led in scoring by Latrell Reed. He's a guard.
No, Corey Washington.
Corey Washington. All right. Give me Corey Washington. Because I got
Yes,
Corey Washington as the Peacock's most efficient player, averaging 28.6 points per game.
Yeah, so St. Peter's this year has Corey Washington as their leading scorer. He is averaging just over 16 points per game. I think you were looking at the per 40 minutes. But Corey Washington is averaging 16 points per game. He is 6'6". He only played 22 games this year. So Latrell Reed has scored the most points on the year because in total.
Oh, okay. Well, so we were both right.
Yes.
But
either way, Corey Washington is averaging 16.5 points a game, 6.5 rebounds a game. But I would agree with you that Latrell Reed is probably the biggest offensive threat because he's the only threat from three. He's 35% from three. But problem with Latrell Reed is he's 64.5% from the free throw line and 36.5% from the field overall. 36.7% on 2-pointers. He's just not that good outside of getting hot from three every now and then. But yeah, those are really the only two players you have to worry about is Corey Washington and Latrell Reed. And Corey Washington, they live off of down low, but he is 6'6". And like I said, I think Jonas Adu is going to hold him to 7 points. Corey Washington won't hit double figures in this game. That's a bet. That's a prop bet right now for you guys. Corey Washington doesn't score 10 points on Thursday's game.
10 points. All right. Tell us more about Washington. What do you make of him? They've got some bigs, at least for their level.
Yeah, that's Corey Washington. That's who they have as their big. And they use him by the way, his big is 6'6", 185. And this is the big point I'm trying to make. He's big relative to his level, the same way Johnny Majors was a big running back relative to the level of Tennessee football in the single wing era of the 1950s.
He's their big, and he's 6'6".
And he's 185. So he's not even that wide.
No, that's their big. And he is a guy that, like we mentioned, Reed averages most points per game, but Washington's 164 rebounds this season, tops for the Peacocks. But again, he's 6'6". Sophomore guard Brent Bland has some sticky fingers, leads the Peacocks with 41 steals this season. Sophomore forward Mohamed Sow is the force in the front court, leading the Peacocks with 35 blocks this season, second on the team with 157 rebounds. So he's the other big guy. Mohamed Sow, though, that's not easy to find, to say. Mohamed Sow is 6'9". So whereas if you're in the SEC and you say they have a big front court, you're thinking you got a 6'10" guy and a 6'8" to complement him, right?
Right.
Well, if you're on St. Peter's level, you're talking about a 6'9" guy is your big, and a 6'6" is the guy that will complement him.
Well, and they don't even start together. That's the thing. Well, actually, I take that back. They do. They do. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Washington and Sow do start together. But here's the thing. They're both under 200 pounds. Mohamed Sow is 195. Corey Washington is 185. How are you 6'9", 195 pounds, Dave?
Been pretty close to that. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your
You're
jeweler.
not close to that.
Well, it's a long story. Rick Terry
6'9".
Jewelry Designs. Oh, 6'9" or 6'5"?
No, I said 6'9", 195.
I've never been close to that. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? The Fire Opals are a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Take part in our poll question that says, I'm honestly expecting Tennessee to blank. Flame out in the first week of NCAA's 20%. That'd be this week. Sweet 16 or better is 80%. So there's a vast difference. Now, give me a reason why St. Peter's will upset Tennessee. Difficult, I know.
I genuinely can't see how they could do it.
Now, listen, a 3's at least going to beat a 14, and a 2 might, a 16. Sorry, a 14 is going to beat a 3 in this tournament more than likely. A 15 very well could beat a 2. It's happened. Well, you said 8 times. You've got to give me some sort of reason.
Yes, but those are usually about
Tennessee fans should be concerned about.
Those are usually about matchups where a team got red hot or a team went ice cold. If you're a team that wins your games based on defense and forcing it inside, how are you going to beat, and you're super small, how are you going to beat Tennessee when you're 6'6" trying to win inside against Jonas Aidoo? Okay. Here we go. All right, okay. Here's how it's going to happen. Refs call a ticky-tack game so Jonas Aidoo gets in foul trouble. St. Peter's defense does a good job denying the paint after that. And Tennessee is just ice cold shooting the ball from outside. So they win this game 53-52.
Yep.
About as far as I can go. There.
I'll make an argument. My one argument is more on Tennessee's side than St. Peter's. And that is Tennessee, I believe, has just slightly started to rely on Dalton Connect too much. I don't think it's a problem yet, but if this were January and they were leaning on him, I would think, man, by March, he's going to be all they got. And that certainly wouldn't be good. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Following Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Daily update, Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. We love them in North Knoxville. They are supplying us with the Brew McCoy autographed helmet. They will have a special signing with Dylan Sampson on Saturday where you can go by and take part. We appreciate them. If you want to join Hooker's Corner, you can win weekly prizes. And also, you can take part in our NCAA bracket challenge. Hooked on March is what we call it. Or you can take part in that for free, or you can go ahead and join and be eligible for all kinds of increased recruiting information. And also, we'll take care of you with prizes weekly, and the grand prize, which this month is that Brew McCoy autographed helmet. And it's black too. And it's really, really cool. If you haven't seen a picture of it, you need to do that. Lamont saying, I believe Tennessee already knows about St. Peter's run last year. St. Peter's team beat Kentucky, right?
Yes, I do believe they did beat Kentucky last year. I'm pulling that up, but
so you better not sleep on them. I agree that it would take something insano for Tennessee to lose, but you look at their last 10 games. St. Peter's has only lost 2 of its last 10 games, which would seem to indicate the Peacocks are playing their best basketball of the season. They beat Quinnipiac. Feel free to correct my pronunciation if you would like to.
That was 2 years ago, actually, not last year, I believe. Wasn't it 2022? So that's, to be fair.
Yeah, well, they managed to win the conference tournament, and right now I'm seeing them at about a 19-point favorite. Is that correct?
I haven't checked the line yet, but you also, I will look at that soon, but you also do have to remember this. I just pulled up that St. Peter's team that beat Kentucky. One, they had a different coach at the time. They had Shaheen Holloway, and they were, I mean, I'm just going to say it, a much more efficient shooting team during that time. Now they didn't score a lot, but it was one of those, it was kind of like that Virginia team where they kind of played, they slowed the ball down, they worked the shot clock, but that doesn't mean they couldn't score when they needed to. So they could get hot from three, they could be dangerous from three. And against Kentucky, look, I'm just going to say it. I keep telling you guys this. John Calipari can't coach inside players at all. That's actually his biggest weakness. That leads to things like an upset, which is what happened in the NCAA tournament back in 2022. Rick Barnes does coach inside players much better than St. Peter's does. But the big one is St. Peter's went 9-17 from three. They're not.
Well, and they did lose to Quinnipiac twice this season and then beat them in the conference tournament. So that's a team that's still playing hard. Those scare you when you play these type of teams, and they want to make a lot of noise. Let's just say that they beat Tennessee. I mean, what would that mean for their program? It would be massively, massively huge. But
this may be the worst team in the NCAA tournament, though.
Where would you rank them? Do you have 2 or 3 teams that you think are worse? Because you might be right. I mean, they're not getting in the tournament if they don't win their conference tournament.
No, not at all. I mean, and the thing is, they weren't like they're the classic example of why I've always said, and I've always believed this. I don't know why these smaller conferences, Dave, just have this regular season, and then they're like, let's just have a wide open conference tournament to put the conference champion in. Like, you really run the risk of getting one of your lesser teams in, and given the payout for the units, like I talked to you about earlier, like, you get paid for every game a team plays in the NCAA tournament. Wouldn't you want your best team that can make the deepest run in the tournament if that were the case? And
I would.
Yeah. So I don't know why they like my big suggestion has always been, if I were one of these smaller conferences, I do the conference tournament, but the team that finishes first in the league gets to play. It's at that team's stadium. They get to play at home.
Folks, I want to take just a second to tell you about Dynasty Pools and Spas. The best spas made right here in the United States of America, in your backyard. They're in Athens. They have the showroom there, and they give discounts for military personnel. They give discounts for blemish models, and it's everything you need. They'll deliver within 125 miles to you from that showroom. They got 2-year parts and labor, a warranty. They're made here, support local, and when you have that spa delivered, they're going to make sure that you have the steps, the cover lift, and the chemicals to get you started. That's Dynasty Pools and Spas. So St. Peter's, not very good. Texas, do you know much about them at this point?
About Texas? Well, I mean, they're obviously led by first-year head coach Rodney Terry, as you guys kind of remember. He was the interim head coach, filling in for Chris Beard, given what happened to Chris Beard last year. And if you remember, he took over, won the Big 12 tournament, and then took Texas to the Elite Eight. Now, didn't have much of a improvement this year, but I mean, that's a pretty impressive run. Now, the really interesting part about Texas is one of their assistants is Frank Haith, who was a Rick Barnes protege in the early 2000s, and then coached at Miami and then Missouri and then Tulsa. Got fired by Missouri and Tulsa. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he is a Rick Barnes protege. So this is kind of an intriguing matchup. Matter of fact, as I say that, Rodney Terry's a Rick Barnes protege. Rodney Terry is coached under Rick Barnes for about 10 years. So this isn't just Rick Barnes against his former school. It's Rick Barnes against former assistants. And if they're anything like Rick Barnes, which we'll talk about when it comes to coaching in the tournament, that should maybe favor Rick Barnes, because the disadvantages for Barnes won't be there when they're playing Texas.
2 minutes, Tennessee Open spring football. We're going to tell you what they need to accomplish, and also how will Rick Barnes be remembered if he blows this tournament, which he's blown quite a few. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sand and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Get an update of our poll question if you can, Caleb, on the YouTube page. What do we got? Because you've been all over it. I know the question is basically Sweet 16, pre-Sweet 16 flame out or deeper in the tournament. What say you?
Deeper in the tournament is killing it. It's Sweet 16 or better is at 82% right now. And so that's even crazier than it was a while ago. So yeah, it's looks like it's pretty clear where everybody's headed with that.
Yep. I agree completely. So let's go ahead and ask the question that I think we all are wondering about. When does regular season Rick not become regular season Rick? And I'm going to ask the question that it's not today's tough question, but I might put it on the poll as well. And it's time for what the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Please hit that like and subscribe button. Is Rick Barnes' career on the line this March? Not perhaps next March when he brings in a great class, which he may or may not do. Not the following year, but this year he'll be 70 this summer. He has a special player that can manufacture points. He has, Caleb, unless you disagree, I would say the best roster he has had from top to bottom, even though he doesn't play them all. Is Rick Barnes ultimately going to be judged by this tournament run or lack thereof? I don't know that he's going to have a better team at any point in his career. He's 70 this summer.
If Rick Barnes can't win the NCAA tournament or go far in the NCAA tournament this year.
What's far? Define far.
He needs to make at least an Elite Eight run. And that's a disappointment. It's a disappointment if he doesn't go to the Final Four, but Elite Eight is the minimum. And I can say this: if he makes an Elite Eight run this year, he'll be the most successful basketball coach in Tennessee history, bar none. But
yes, that's not saying
I can get from that. That's not saying a lot. He will surpass Ray Mears and Bruce Pearl, who I think right now both of them are still ahead of Rick Barnes at this particular moment.
So
if he
go ahead, sorry.
If he makes an Elite Eight run, I will say he's the best, and I will say that's fine because anything can happen with the Elite Eight. You know, best teams don't always win it all. That's fine. If he flames out in the first weekend again, or if he loses to a lower seed again in the tournament, there is nothing he'll be able to do next year to have Tennessee fans have faith in him. What could he do, Dave? Like what he'll still be there because when you're Tennessee basketball, you look at the history of the program and you're like, hey, you talked about prioritizing and valuing certain sports last week with the Lady Vols. I think Tennessee basketball is not like the Lady Vols, but it is on a level of Danny White's probably saying, as long as this program's relevant, I'm satisfied with Rick Barnes because it's generating the money it needs to.
Elijah read my mind about the Final Four. Sorry, you were going to finish, Caleb?
Yeah, so I think that on a general sense, I don't think this has any impact with Danny White's perspective, because I think Danny White approaches men's basketball the way you think he should approach the Lady Vols. Now, men's basketball is a revenue producer, but Danny White is like, it's all about football. As long as men's basketball is producing a base level of revenue, I don't really care what they do to go far in the tournament. And I think with Rick Barnes, you produce that base level of revenue. But if they flame out this year, he may not be producing that next year. Because, Dave, I got a question. Do you think anybody's going to care what Tennessee's doing in the regular season next year if Rick Barnes doesn't go far this year? Do you think they'll have any analysis of the team to say this team is different? They'll have no reason to believe anything, will they?
I think that already happened. Apathy is what you're talking about. Apathy at the national media level, I think, already happened. Why in the world was Dalton Knecht not getting more talk about player of the year? We can say if he'd have played in North Carolina, yes, he would have. But the guy at Purdue is getting attention, which he should, and won it last year for player of the year. Edey, Purdue is not North Carolina or Duke. You can get big time respect at a non-blue blood program, but you better not be a part of a program and under a coach that's known for doing bupkis in March.
Well, yes, it already happened in national. It already happened in national media, but Rick Barnes, local media, saw something different about this team. You've been saying all year this team is different, Dave, than the previous year teams Rick Barnes has coached.
Because of Dalton. That's the only reason.
Because of Dalton. So local media had a reason to believe this team is different. So because of that, there was still a glimmer of hope to say, okay, it could happen now. But nobody. But if he doesn't go far this year, Dave, don't you think local media and local fans will have the apathy next year at that point? I mean, it kind of got to the point with remember when LeBron lost the finals in 2011 to the Mavs his first year with the Heat? Nobody watched him play the regular season next year. Everybody was like, I don't care anymore. You got to win in the finals at this point.
Okay, Caleb, you didn't go crazy earlier, but you've gone crazy, Caleb, now. You've gone crazy, Caleb, now. Because you're talking about apathy on a team that won how many games this year? How many did they win?
24,
What?
25. I believe it's 24.
Yeah. Whatever, the mid-20s, made the NCAA tournament as a 2 seed. Apathy sets in at 10 wins a year. Apathy sets in when I'm in college and Wade Houston's the coach. And honestly, I did not know. And then Kevin O'Neill took over. I did not know if there was a basketball game that night, and I lived on campus. How crazy is that, Caleb? There were times I wasn't sure because that was apathy. What you're talking about is not even in the ballpark. And thanks to our good friend T. Scott Jones and Banks and Jones, the show represented by Banks and Jones, I was able to attend a Tennessee basketball game, and those fans were fervent. They were excited. 30 seconds, and why Caleb is undervaluing Tennessee's fan base, their passion, and their loyalty, Ray Varner Ford.
Welcome to Ray Varner Ford in Clinton, where every turn meets new possibilities and every mile celebrates the cutting-edge innovation within our Ford lineup. Elevate your journey in this new 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Cab, $44,992. A 2023 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,952. 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Crew XLT, $54,900. Local you trust, innovation you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
I think you're being way unfair to Tennessee's fan base. They showed up mostly for Dooley. They showed up for Butch. Always want to drop a U for an eye on that. They showed up for Jeremy Pruitt. prospects have shown up because of the fan loyalty. If Tennessee's knocking on the door of an NCAA tournament, I think they're going to have a rabid fan base. I don't think this matters. I think national media, so I'm throwing two things at you. I think national media will view Rick Barnes moving forward as they don't need to spend as much time on the Vols or wherever he may be coaching because they're not going to do anything in March. I think it'll hurt them from a publicity perspective, but I don't think you should sell Tennessee's fan base short.
Apathy goes two ways. The first way is, like you said, 10 wins a game. You know the program's terrible. You don't want to give it any money. The other way apathy sets in is if you're watching a team and you realize that they've already reached, there is no new, that they're not going to compete for a national title, and there's no new height they could possibly reach that they haven't already reached. So, and what I mean by that is Tennessee, if you're watching Tennessee basketball and you know your ceiling is the NCAA round of 32, like you just know that verifiably for a fact, you are going to actually lose a lot. You are going to have a lot of apathy set in over time.
So are you telling me then that it's Final Four or bust for Tennessee's fan base? Or is it Elite Eight or bust? Or is it Sweet 16 or bust? What is it?
I'm saying it's Final Four or disappointment, Elite Eight or bust. Difference between disappointment and bust.
So if they just make the 16, you think Tennessee as a whole, as a fan base, is like, I'm done with regular season, Rick?
Yes. How many times are they going to make the Sweet 16 and not go further? And this is a problem. You have to give your fan, short of a national title, you have to give your fans something to believe that they can be better than what they are if you don't want apathy to sit in. Dave, you're a Cowboy fan. You know this.
Oh, well, that's actually a fantastic comparison. I'm as apathetic as they come because I know that they're may make the playoffs on their both years, but I also know that they'll on their best years, but I also know that they'll have fans touring the weight room because of potential, because they need to make more money while the guys are working out. I know that they inflate guys' contracts. I know they're overcovered. So that's actually a very good comparison because I miss Cowboys games now. Up until the mid 2000s, like 2005-ish, I never, ever, ever missed a game. And I was a huge Cowboys fan before they won 3 Super Bowls. I hope you trust me on that. I watched the 1 in 15, the 3 and 13 season. I can tell you who they beat in those years. But you're right. Success apathy would be what Tennessee fans would have. I have success apathy with the Dallas Cowboys. That's maybe the best comparison you've ever made.
Yeah, and let's actually bring it to football because you brought it up with the football program and everybody they set through. Dave, I think we're forgetting this covering. You covered the 98 Tennessee team. But I think we're forgetting, because that 98 team rewrote the narrative, aren't we forgetting that Tennessee football was dangerously close to a little bit of apathy after constantly losing to Florida each year and saying that there was a feeling that Fulmer would never get over the hump, wasn't there? Until that 98 team?
There was success apathy. There was success apathy at Florida. And that's why Steve Spurrier retired. He says, if you can't win 10 games around here and people be happy, what are we doing?
But Spurrier had already proven that he could win a national title when the success apathy hit in.
No, but I think there was success apathy after the 98 season, too. I think it was like, if you can't get in the national championship game, because we're just talking about a 2-team playoff back then. If you can't get in that game, it's just I think there was success apathy after.
But you at least believe getting into the game was possible. There was a period in the 90s where fans at Tennessee started to believe that it was just never going to happen, right? They were never going to get over the hump of Florida with Fulmer at the helm. There was a genuine belief of that.
No. Is Rick Barnes' career on the line this March? 21% say yes. Can't be regular season Rick anymore. 79% no. Great career no matter what. Caleb, if one day you're working like crazy on Off the Hook Sports and it grows and it's tremendous in 5 years, and ESPN comes to you and they say, we've got to hire you. We're going to throw a lot of money at you, and Dave can't match that, even though I know what they pay, and I'm sure as hell try. If you left Off the Hook Sports in a better place, shouldn't I appreciate that? if Rick Barnes retires, I think you would have to say Tennessee's basketball program is in a better place than it was when he took over. Isn't that the sign of a great coach?
Yes, Rick Barnes has done a great job, but there is the having to take it to the next level. And I think that's where you would say that Rick Barnes hasn't been able to do yet. I mean, there's the developing, and then there's the winning it all. Look, Doug Collins did a lot of good with Michael Jordan when he was coach of the Bulls, but they believed that they couldn't get over the hump until they got Phil Jackson and named him
Tex
head coach.
Winners.
And Tex Winter, yeah.
The assistant coach who developed the triangle offense.
And also, it's funny, you bring up the ESPN thing, or, working here. Dave, for those who don't know, and I mean, we'll just talk about it up front, like, I had a debate with myself leaving my previous position before I came to you, right? And started working with you.
I guess you did.
We no, we did. We talked about it. What did I talk about with you? And we're not going to talk money or details, but what I said is
good.
What I could get from Dave now, I know it could be more in 5 years. I knew that what I was getting off from the old place.
Not financially, just exposure, growth.
Even financially, though, I knew I could get, I knew it would grow in 5 years from what you were offering me from when I started. I knew what the other place was offering me. That's exactly what I was going to get 5 years from then. You know what I mean? And it was like,
right.
You were, and we've all worked at corporations, Dave. How often you've worked at corporations when you know you have a max of what you're going to make, no matter what happens, no matter what you do, doesn't apathy kick in for your job at that point? What do you care? There's no way you can go over this.
Yeah, it's called 2010 for Dave. I'd accomplished quite a bit, and I got maybe a little bit bored and want to do something else. So this job never gets boring. So I can certainly promise you that. Do we want to get to this day in Tennessee sports history, or do we want to continue to talk about how Rick Barnes very much his resume will be defined by what he does this year? I believe that. I think this is the last shot for a real one. Elias says, who would they hire to replace Rick Barnes if he retired? Blake, we don't know it's Rick Barnes' last year. He just turned 70 this summer. I got a weird feeling he'll retire. Steve Forbes, who coached under Bruce Pearl and is at Wake right now, has done a great job. But I think Danny White is too much of a salesman, and he'll want a coach that also comes with a good style. Steve Forbes is defense. And then when you get the ball, play a little more defense. So I don't.
But he does play the same tempo Bruce Pearl runs. But you're right, and Steve Forbes hasn't yet made an NCAA tournament at Wake Forest in 4 years. So
yes, in other words, I love Steve Forbes on a personal level. I think he's a great guy, but I think Tennessee could do a little bit better than that. Now,
yep.
Switch up.
So as far as this day in Tennessee sports history, we can go back to 2007, believe it or not. And
I'll tell you who it's brought to you by first.
Sure.
Cool. Brought to you by Apex Apparel. Not just apparel. They do so much more. Design, brand, market your way. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. They're full-on brand supply company. Whether you need a logo design, layouts, or signage, promo products, screen printing, embroidery, go to orderapexapparel.com, orderapexapparel.com, or call Tyler. You get on your first order, you get 15% off. You mentioned Off the Hook Sports. Tyler's number is very easy. Plug it in your phone or do what you need to do to get that 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. What happened back in 2007, going back to my youth?
27 years ago today, Tennessee beat Virginia 77-74 to advance to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. It was their first Sweet 16 appearance at the time in 7 years. And they went to go play that. The next game, by the way, was on March the 22nd, where they blew a 20-point lead against Ohio State with Greg Oden and Mike Conley and lost 85-84 in the last second. But that Virginia win was a big win. It was one of the highlights of Bruce Pearl's tenure at Tennessee, and he had a lot of good highlights. Virginia was a 4 seed. One thing that's relevant about this is Tennessee opened that NCAA tournament with a win against Long Beach State, 121-86. The coach at Long Beach State left for a better job a year later, and Long Beach State hired Dan Monson. Dave, did you hear what happened to Dan Munson over the weekend?
What happened to Dan Munson over the weekend?
We're talking about a 17, 18-year coach at Long Beach State. He got fired, and they let him close out the season. And then he went and won the conference tournament, and they're going to the NCAA tournament.
That's like worse than the Dennis Felton situation when he kept his Georgia job for winning the SEC tournament.
Yeah. He's coaching the NCAA tournament knowing he's fired. I think now people are going to call me crazy. I think you still fire him. If you thought the decision beforehand, you stick with the decision, right? You don't let a conference tournament change your mind.
I don't put myself in that position.
So what you're saying is you wouldn't have let him finish the season.
No,
you're fired and you can't finish the season.
Yeah, I mean, when you get rid of somebody, you take away their passwords, don't you? You don't let them walk around the building and continue to coach their team knowing that they're fired. I mean, they could sabotage. I mean, you could do anything.
They let Fulmer finish the season.
My grandfather always said, and he had employees. My grandfather always said it was nothing personal if somebody came to him and said, I'm going to work out a 2-week notice. I've taken another job. My grandfather said, I pretend it was you. Caleb, that's fine. He goes, I understand. Opportunities come up. I'll pay you for your last 2 weeks, but if you don't mind, just you can go ahead and vacate the premises. And I need your key. He wasn't mean about it. He just didn't want somebody around that didn't have his best interest at heart, right? And if you know you're not going to be there in 2 weeks, you don't have their best interest at heart, the business.
What you're saying is if you were Mike Hamilton, you would not have let Philip Fulmer coach those last 3 games.
Oh, whole another topic about how that was mishandled. That's just one of the many. We could do Dynasty Pools and Spas, 58 downs of exactly how Tennessee mishandled the Philip Fulmer firing. 58 downs. What down is it, Cooper? 58. I'll have them read that today and I'll be like, what the hell are you talking about?
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
We talking about practice, man. Tennessee starts spring practice. You'll see coverage of the Vols press conference on Off the Hook Sports. And let's get into some keys for the Vols, as it is 4 Downs, brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Coop, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah. First down.
Coop here. First down.
I'm going to steal first down, because first down, did you know, is the most important down in football?
I did, actually, particularly in Josh Heupel's offense.
Yep, first down sets up your down and distance for everything. Everybody's like, 4th down, 3rd down. No, first down. You get 5 yards, 4 yards on first down. Every down, you win a lot of football games every time. So first down is this. Tennessee need to get tougher. And I wrote this. I believe that Tennessee has depth now. I believe that they need to crank up their practice physicality, because you're competing with a team like Georgia, and they're very physical. Tennessee does not run the most physical practices. Now, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so that's not even a criticism. It's not a compliment. But they do not run the most physical. What's that?
I hate that phrase. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
I hate split a baby.
It's so sociopathic.
I know, but you use split a baby all the time. I hate that one more. All right, so
that's in the Bible.
Oh, no, it is. There's a lot of things in the Bible we don't say during the show.
I know. There's a lot of bad stuff in the Bible. Like crazy stories.
But I think they need to get tougher. I think some tackling during spring camp, holding used to be 4 weeks of spring camp. You'd have 5 scrimmages. 1 was dedicated to special teams, approximately. If I were Josh Heupel, I understand that I could get a player hurt. By the way, he doesn't allow tackling in practice. I'd hold about 8 scrimmages this spring. I would. I'd make sure this team's tougher. I think it's deeper. Another factor is I think Nico Iamaleava will follow in line. It's kind of like pulling off a Band-Aid if he wanted to do this. I'm not saying he does, but if that's the direction that Josh Heupel goes to amp it up, be more physical in practice, I believe Nico would back him. And he now has, which he didn't last year. Sorry, Joe Milton fans. He now has a coach on the field, so to speak. What do you think about the Vols getting more physical, which admittedly would risk an injury on a team that most people think is pretty good?
I think the injuries were the only thing that held him back last year. I don't think it was a lack of toughness. So I actually disagree with you. I think stay healthy in the spring, because honestly, Heupel's offense moves so fast anyway, particularly with what he wants to do. It's borderline touch football as it is, honestly.
Okay. All right. So the biggest storylines in spring camp are on offthehooksports.com. So let's go ahead and dig into those via Caleb Calhoun and our good friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. What down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
How healthy is Tennessee football? This kind of speaks to your point. Brew McCoy, Keenan Pili, Javonte Spraggins, and Dante Thornton are potential stars who have returned after suffering season-ending injuries last year. I'm told Brew's fine. I'm told Keenan's fine. I think Dante Thornton will be fine. I have not gotten a report back on Spraggins, but my assumption is those four would not do very much in spring to make sure they're ready for the fall. Everybody gets held out of spring. About 20 to 25% get held out during spring camp. Which returning veterans will become leaders? I ask you that, Caleb. Who are those guys that need to be leaders that weren't before?
So we know Amari Thomas and Cooper Mays. Those are the leaders of this team right now, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I bet Amari Thomas will be, I don't know, the last time it happened.
And I heard Dylan Sampson over the weekend again, which is weird because you pointed out as a running back. I know it's weird, but
I will be mentioning Dylan Sampson in another way a little bit on this preview. Okay. But I think the other ones, Bryson Eason, Dominic Bailey have been there for a while. Omar Norman-Lott and John Campbell Jr. were two transfers who really emerged last year. And then there's the guys returning that we just named, McCoy, Pili, and Spraggins. I think any of them. I think Amari Thomas and Cooper Mays are a lot to go to SEC Media Days. Is that fair? Those are the two probably going to SEC Media Days. I don't know who the third one is. That's really my big question, is who's going to be the third. And would it be Pili? Would it be McCoy? Would it be – who do you think, Dave?
Well, I know they took Joe Milton because it would look weird last year to not take Joe Milton. They were going to take somebody else, but they want to take
They don't have to do that with Nico, though, since Nico's only a sophomore.
I don't think so, but you talked about how shallow at times that Josh Heupel can be about numbers and liking. And I've been told that by several people, trying to run up the score, get more numbers. He cares. That's the longest streak in Tennessee history that Tennessee scored 40 or more points in a game. He may care to show off Nico. So I agree with you, but I'm not discounting it completely. Fair?
Fair enough.
Now, I think you might want to show him off, especially if he thinks he's gone after his junior year. Show him off 2 years the way Al Mummy did Tim Couch.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
And third down, again, it's on offthehooksports.com as the 5 keys to spring practice, as Caleb has that.
5 storylines, 5 questions.
Storylines.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Jimmy's thunder. He did the keys. So
no. All right. Will any newcomers take over vacant starting roles? Also, the same thing with newcomers on the coaching staff. 2 new coaches. So the newness. Who are some guys that need to shrug off the newness and be ready to go as soon as possible?
Well, some transfers that are very clear: Jacoby Thomas and Jermon McCoy in the secondary, Lance Hurd on the offensive line, and Chris Brazel at receiver. All these guys could end up being starters. I think Lance Hurd's actually a favorite to start. It's a disappointment if he doesn't start. And then you have a couple freshmen coming in that I think Boo Carter in the secondary, and then at receiver, Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley. I'd be really shocked if about 3 of the guys I just named aren't in the starting lineup next year somewhere.
Yep. Okay. Who takes the biggest step forward this spring? Give me some candidates before we both settle on who will be the biggest rising star in spring camp. Give me some candidates.
Okay, so there are guys who have shown flashes but haven't reached what we think their potential could be. And in that, including Dylan Sampson, Squirrel White, and Arian Carter. Then there are guys who are massive underachievers to this point and need to take a step forward. And they're both of their names start with our first names are Andre Turntine and Andre Carrick. And then there are guys who we already know our stars are great, but they might have another level. James Pierce is one. And most obviously is Nico Iamaleava, who I think is already a star. I saw enough in the Citrus Bowl to fully believe in him.
To me, he's in the given category that I believe I know what he can do.
Same
So
with Pierce.
who will needs to have the biggest spring camp for the Vols and make a step? Give me 4.
I think Arian Carter absolutely needs to let it be known who he is this spring. Is that fair to say?
Kind of. I wonder how banged up he is. Listen, if you have a hangnail, they'll hold you out of spring camp. So
that's true.
He had the bad shoulder last year, but if healthy, absolutely. Okay. Who else?
Tennessee desperately needs Dylan Sampson. Doesn't need to do it for himself as much as Tennessee needs Dylan Sampson to take a step forward in the spring.
Agreed.
They're in trouble if he doesn't.
Agreed.
I think for his own sake, Andre Turrentine needs to step up in the spring.
He might be stepping up or transferring in the spring.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Andre
then
Turrentine.
Yep. And then lastly, I think for his own sake and for Tennessee's sake, they desperately need Andre Carrick to take a step forward. I don't know if he will. I've been very hard on him. He's probably, if he gets really, really good, I really messed up then because he's never going to come on our show. But
We're not in the business of searching out offensive guards to be on the program anyway.
No,
unless you're a center and you have a local tie and you're really good on podcasts like Cooper. But as far as guards, we got some star power for this upcoming fall coming to the show. So we're looking forward to that. So take part in the new poll question. I just reset. Who will / needs to have the biggest spring camp for the Vols? Arian Carter, Dylan Sampson, Andre Turrentine, Andre Keurig. I'll tell you that I believe in Carter this fall, regardless of what happens in the spring, and he might be limited because of getting banged up last year. I'll tell you that I like Dylan Sampson a little bit more overall than I think you do, because I've been told he's a leader and he was better in pass protection grades than you and I thought last year. I'm surprised he hasn't been a big factor yet. And if he's not a guy that gets 15 good touches this fall, then you and I were right in questioning him earlier. Andre Turrentine, the cornerback out of Ohio State, he's going to hit his third school in 2.5 years if he doesn't hit a big spring. I'm not saying they'll tell him to leave, but goodness gracious, you go through 2 full years, you would like to expect to be playing. Andre Keurig is another one. I think he will play well. I think he's slated to be the starting left guard. Out of that group, I'm going to rate him in my confidence level, and I'm not going to factor in whether or not he does anything in spring. My confidence level that they'll have a great fall would be Carter, number 1, Sampson 2, Keurig 3, Turrentine 4. How about you?
Carter 1, Sampson 2, Keurig. Wow, you have Keurig over Turrentine. I
struggled with it, if that helps. Before we get your answer, let's remind everybody that 4 Downs is brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Having the best spas made right here in the United States of America in your backyard. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Their showroom is open in Athens, right off the interstate. You can stop by and check out the best hot tubs and spas in the market. And delivery, yes, they can do that to Knoxville or Chattanooga. They've got complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. They also have pool chemicals as well. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com or stop by that showroom in Athens. dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. All right, who are you taking to have a good spring, a good 2024? Keurig or Turrentine? And would you have the same ranking of Arian Carter, Dylan Sampson, and those 2 that I had?
Yes, I would actually. I agree with you on that. By the way, do we leave Squirrel White out? Does he need a good spring?
Not as much as the other guys. Different level.
Okay. I would say Keurig because Tennessee needs Keurig more. And Turrentine at least showed flashes, but when Turrentine showed flashes, it was against Iowa in the Citrus Bowl, and does that even count?
Yeah, I know. And Curry
Like,
got
this-
in the game because players in front of him that weren't very good were hurt. So
Do you
there's
think? Sorry,
there's the two very non-ringing endorsements about those two players.
I'm dead serious. Do you think me or you could have started in the secondary and still held Iowa to 0 points for Tennessee in the Citrus Bowl if the other 10 guys were there?
No, talking to the guy who's sore from walking too much. So I don't want to be involved in that. If I'm allowed to run straight off the field and it's basically 11 against 10, yeah. But I don't even like put myself in that possible.
I mean, is that the worst Power 5 offense you've ever seen, passing offense you've ever seen in your life?
There's no question. I mean, to have success. I mean, I've seen worse that were awful. Hit like and subscribe. We got a record number of people in as far as current viewers. So take that 1 second, hit like and subscribe. Take another second, turn your notifications on, and we'll have a little Cooper Mays coming out to you later today. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Don't forget, by the way, to take part in our Hooker Madness challenge that is on our Patreon page. It's not really called that, but I will go ahead and put the link, and it's free to participate if you would like to do that. And I think I have the link right here. I lost the link. All right, so let me go ahead and put the link. I'll put that on the message board right now. As do you have your Final Four ready yet?
I have not done my research yet, guys, and I don't do brackets without doing my research, but I don't know why I do this. This is the worst part about Mark. You spend all your time doing research, and then old Billy down the road is like, I'm just going to throw this color's jerseys on, and then they go and have the best bracket.
Now, you can go against those on Off the Hook Sports. We'll get Fred White to fill out a bracket. We'll get some other guys to fill out a bracket. Caleb Calhoun as well. We'll talk some trash. We had our message board set up on the YouTube channel. Already had some trash talkers, so I won't tell you who I've got in the Final Four until Caleb's willing to share as well, because sharing is caring. He's Caleb. I'm Dave Hooker.